Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hey, welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. It is the 10th of August, 2018. If you're watching us live, you can call us at 503-288-4448 and ask us questions. I have right here beside me Mr. Clay Pierce, who's going to talk about the situation in Colombia, your time in El Salvador, what it's like being a medical marijuana patient and an immigrant to a Latin American country. We have a pretty long, how are you doing, Clay?
Good, good.
We have a pretty long hemp news segment, a number of video clips and flashbacks, so stay tuned as we bring on our infamous Dancing Cannabis Leaves.
I feel the force.
Okay, our first story tonight is from Missouri. Missouri voters will get to choose from 3 different medical cannabis legalization initiatives this November, according to the Bolivar Herald Free Press there in the Show Me state of Missouri. 2 of these initiatives are constitutional amendments, and the third is a statutory amendment. These are competing groups that all 3 have apparently qualified their medical marijuana proposals. Petition 2018-041 in Missouri is a constitutional amendment that would legalize and regulate the use of cannabis for medical purposes, create licensing procedures for growers and manufacturers, impose a 15% retail tax, impose a per ounce wholesale tax on flower products, and use the funds from the taxes to establish a Missouri State Institute to research and investigate the benefits of medicinal cannabis. The proposal is estimated to generate about $66 million in annual taxes and licensing fees. Missouri state officials estimate the initial implementation costs at $186,000, with an annual operating cost of up to $500,000 each year. The next one, petition 2018-51, is a constitutional amendment that would also codify medical cannabis into the Missouri State Constitution. It would legalize the use of medical cannabis and create regulations, licensing procedures for cannabis cultivars and manufacturing facilities. It imposes a 4% retail tax and allocates funds from those taxes for health services for military veterans and to fund the regulatory agencies for the medical marijuana program. It's estimated the proposal would generate up to $18 million in annual taxes and licensing fees for Missouri's operating costs and veterans programs, and up to $6 million for local government. Approximately $7 million in annual state operating costs can be expected. The next and last petition that the state of Missouri will be voting on this November on medical marijuana is 2018-271, a statutory amendment that would amend Missouri law to allow doctors to certify patients with a qualifying medical condition for personal use and possession of medical cannabis. It will create a licensed and regulated industry for the growth, production, and sale of medical cannabis. It imposes a 2% retail tax. The use of the money will help fund veteran services, drug treatment, early childhood education, and public safety in cities with medical marijuana. State officials estimate the initial one-time cost of this proposal to be $2.6 million, with annual costs of up to $10 million. The annual revenue should be at least $10 million. Local government officials estimate zero annual costs with at least $152,000 in annual revenues. Missouri's current medical cannabis program is extraordinarily limited and exists largely in name only. It covers only epilepsy patients and allows only for hemp-derived CBD oils. Missouri is one of the minority of U.S. states without a comprehensive medical cannabis program. Earlier this year, Oklahoma became the 30th state to legalize medical cannabis. We'll have a little bit more about that later on. So our next story is from Rochester, New York. 85% of Americans believe that marijuana should be legalized for medical use, and 57% of respondents endorse regulating it for anyone over the age of 21, according to national survey data compiled by the Harris Insight and Analytics in a poll paid for by the publication Health Today. Among younger respondents, those ages 18 to 44, 68% agree that cannabis should be legal. Most respondents, 57%, say that legalizing the plant would help alleviate the opioid crisis. Data evaluating prescription drug use trends among individual patients enrolled in the state licensed medical marijuana programs reports that chronic pain subjects frequently reduce or eliminate their use of opioids following enrollment. Maybe that's something we can talk about with you, Clay. The reasons provided by those opposed to legalization included fear of diversion and concerns that legalization could have negatively impact traffic safety. The Harris polling data is largely consistent with those of prior surveys, finding that a majority of Americans back adult use legalization and that a supermajority of voters support medicinal cannabis access. Voters believe that the failed marijuana prohibition laws is a common sense issue, not a partisan one. It's time for our elected officials to take a similar posture and to move expeditiously to amend federal law in a manner that comports with public and scientific consensus, as well as marijuana's rapidly changing cultural and legal status. Next story, medical cannabis access programs are associated with year-over-year declines in fatal workplace accidents, according to data published in the International Journal of Drug Policy. Investigators with Montana State University, Colorado State University, and American University in Washington, D.C. assessed the relationship between the enactment of medical cannabis laws and workplace accidents between the years 1992 and 2015. The researchers reported, quote, legalizing medical marijuana is associated with a 19.5% reduction in the expected number of workplace fatalities among workers aged 25 to 44. That's a very large statistical anomaly, almost 20%. The association between legalizing medical marijuana and workplace fatalities among workers aged 25 to 44 grew stronger over time. 5 years after coming into effect, medical marijuana laws were associated with a 33.7% reduction in the expected number of workplace fatalities. Medical marijuana laws that listed pain as a qualifying condition or allowed collective cultivation were associated with larger reductions in fatality among workers aged 25 to 44 than those that did not, end quote. The authors describe the association as robust, suggesting that it cannot be explained by solely evolving but difficult to measure factors at the state level, such as attitudes or health behaviors. The authors concluded, quote, the current study is the first to explore the effect of medical marijuana laws on workplace fatalities. Our results suggest that legalizing medical marijuana leads to a reduction in workplace fatalities among workers aged 25 to 44. This reduction may be the result of workers substituting marijuana in place of alcohol or other substances that can impair cognitive function and motor skills, end quote. Excuse me. Separate studies evaluating the relationship between medical cannabis access and employment have reported that legalization is associated with lower rates of workplace absenteeism and with increased participation rates among older employees. Excuse me. Other studies have documented lower rates of both alcohol sales and opioid consumption following the enactment of marijuana legalization. An abstract of this study, Medical Marijuana Laws and Workplace Fatalities in the United States, appears online at the National Institutes of Health, or NIH.gov. Our next story tonight is from Oklahoma City. Oklahoma's Republican Governor Mary Fallin signed legislation on Monday rescinding a series of restrictive amendments to the Oklahoma State Voter-Initiated Medical Marijuana Access Law. Many of the amendments, which were previously signed into law by the governor just weeks prior, had been characterized as unconstitutional by the state's Attorney General. The newly codified rules lift the health department's previously imposed ban on the retail sale of herbal cannabis, eliminates the requirement that dispensaries hire state-licensed pharmacists, and no longer mandate that women of childbearing age undergo a pregnancy test prior to receiving a medical cannabis recommendation. No such restrictions initially appeared in Oklahoma's State Question 788. The new rules also remove amendments that sought to set arbitrary limits on the THC content of medical cannabis products and that would have prohibited dispensaries from selling cannabis plants and seedlings to qualified patients, among other changes. Further changes to the program may be considered by the legislature. 57% of Oklahoma voters approved State Question 788 back on June 26th. Our next story is from Colorado. The establishment of retail cannabis sales for adults is not associated with either increased marijuana access or use by young people, according to data published in the journal Preventative Science. A team of investigators with the University of Colorado School of Public Health assessed marijuana use trends among representative sample of Colorado high school students for the years just prior to the implementation of retail sales and again 18 months later. The authors reported, quote, "There was an absence of significant effect for change in lifetime or past 30-day marijuana use. Among those reporting past 30-day use, frequent use, and use on school property, those decline. There was a significant decline in the perceived harm associated with marijuana use, but we did not find a significant effect of perceived wrongfulness, perceived ease of access, or perceived parental disapproval." The authors concluded, quote, "We did not find a significant effect associated with the introduction of legal sales of recreational marijuana to adults in Colorado on adolescent illegal use," end quote. And this data is consistent with prior studies finding that neither the enactment of medical cannabis legalization nor the enactment of adult use regulation is independently associated with increased marijuana use by young people. Separate survey data released by the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment last month reported that rates of marijuana use by Colorado teens have remained virtually unchanged following legalization and are consistent with the national average. This study, adolescent marijuana use, marijuana-related perceptions, and use of other substances before and after the initiation of retail marijuana sales in Colorado, 2013 through 2015, appears in this month's edition of Prevention Science. Just over the river up in Washington State, the number of cannabis-related felony sentences in Washington fell an estimated 90% in the 18 months immediately following the opening of adult-use marijuana retail stores, according to an analysis by Washington Caseload Forecast Council. The investigators identified 147 marijuana-related crimes resulting in felony sentences in this time period compared to 1,312 felony offenses in the year prior to legalization. Again, that's 147 after legalization, 1,312 before legalization. Other jurisdictions have reported similar declines in marijuana-related arrests post-legalization. In California, felony-related marijuana arrests fell 74% between 2016 and 2017 following the enactment of adult use legalization. Our next story is from San Diego, California. The use of cannabidiol products for the treatment of either a specific health condition or for general well-being is becoming prevalent among the general public, according to survey data published in the journal Cannabis and Cannabinoid Research. Researchers at San Diego State University and at the National University of Natural Medicine right here in Portland, Oregon, surveyed a self-selected cohort of 2,409 respondents with regard to their use of CBD products. Respondents typically ranged between 55 and 74 years of age. Among 62% of respondents, they reported using CBD for the purposes of treating a specific medical condition. The top three most commonly cited medical conditions were pain, anxiety, and depression. Almost 36% of the subjects reported that CBD treats their medical conditions very well by itself, while only 4.3% reported the substance to be largely ineffective. The authors concluded, quote, "The use of CBD among individuals for both specific health conditions and general health and well-being is widespread. CBD is being used as a specific therapy for a number of diverse medical conditions, particularly pain and inflammatory disorders, in addition to anxiety, depression, and sleep disorders. A large percentage of respondents indicated that their CBD treats their conditions effectively in the absence of conventional medicine, and with non-serious adverse side effects. The data provide a compelling rationale for further research to better understand the therapeutic potential of CBD in treating chronic pain, anxiety, depression, sleep disorders, and other medical conditions." End quote. The study, a cross-sectional study of cannabidiol users, appears in this month's edition of Cannabis and Cannabinoid Research. From down under in Sydney, Australia, the next story. The adjunctive use of non-standardized CBD extract products is associated with subjective benefits in children with treatment-resistant epilepsy, according to data published in the journal Scientific Reports. A team of researchers from the University of Sydney interviewed 41 families who reported using extracts as a treatment for their child's epilepsy and performed analytical testing on the products. Most families reported obtaining extracts from underground medicinal cannabis providers. 75% of the products evaluated in the study met criteria of perceived effectiveness. 43% of the products were associated with a reduction in the child's use of conventional anti-epileptic medications. The investigators reported that the cannabinoid profiles varied significantly among the products analyzed in the study. They found that almost all of the products contained some levels of THC and that most products possessed relatively low percentage of CBD, despite being marketed as CBD dominant. The authors wrote, quote, "Overall, there were no significant differences in the cannabinoid content of extracts perceived as effective compared to those perceived as ineffective, nor in total milligrams of cannabinoid content," the authors concluded. In June, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, for the first time, granted market approval for the use of standardized plant-derived CBD, AKGW Pharmaceuticals Epidiolex, in treatment of rare forms of pediatric epilepsy. Unfortunately, they rolled out the price of this annual treatment for childhood epilepsy and found that it would cost $32,000 a year. That's a lot of money for something that grows on a tree. But I do realize that GW Pharmaceuticals has spent a lot of money in getting this approval. But still, that seems like too much for a child's epilepsy, in my opinion. This study, Composition and Use of Cannabis Extracts for Childhood Epilepsy in the Australian Community, appears in Scientific Reports. Our next story is from Albuquerque, New Mexico. The use of herbal cannabis is associated with reductions in self-perceived insomnia severity, according to data published in the journal Medicines. University of New Mexico researchers assessed the influence of marijuana use on perceived insomnia severity levels in 409 subjects. The study participants recorded real-time ratings of their symptom severity on a 0 to 10-point scale using mobile software applications. The authors reported that the subjects, quote, "experienced a statistically and clinically significant improvement, minus 4.5 points on a 0 to 10-point scale in perceived insomnia levels." However, products made with cannabis sativa were associated with less symptom relief and more negative side effects than products made from cannabis indica or hybrid plant subtypes, end quote. They added, quote, "CBD potency levels were associated with greater symptom relief than were THC levels," end quote. The researchers concluded, quote, "Our results show that consumption of cannabis flower is associated with significant improvements in perceived insomnia with differential effectiveness and side effect profiles. The widespread apparent use of cannabis as a sleep aid underscores the importance of further medical research regarding its risk-benefit profile and the effectiveness of cannabis as a substitute for other substances, including alcohol, over-the-counter and prescription sleep aids, and scheduled medications. In other words, opioids and sedatives, many of which are used as sleep aids," end quote. The study, Effectiveness of Raw Natural Medical Cannabis Flower for Treating Insomnia Under Naturalistic Conditions, appears in this month's edition of Medicines. Our next story is from Chicago, Illinois. The administration of Nabilone, a synthetic THC analog marketed in the United States under the brand name Sesamet, reduces agitation and other behavioral symptoms in Alzheimer's patients, according to results of a placebo-controlled clinical trial presented at the Alzheimer's Association 2018 International Conference. Researchers from the University of Toronto reported that the oral administration of nabilone capsules significantly improved patient symptoms compared to a placebo over a 14-week randomized trial. The investigators also documented improvements in patients' cognition and nutrition. Sesamin is an FDA-approved to treat nausea and vomiting in patients undergoing cancer chemotherapy. Separate clinical trials have previously reported similar results associated with the use of oral THC and the synthetic THC drug dronabinol, also known as Marinol. Our next story tonight is from New Haven, Connecticut. Medical cannabis use is relatively common among patients with sickle cell disease, according to survey data published in the journal Cannabis and Cannabinoid Research. Investigators at Yale University conducted an anonymous questionnaire among 58 patients with the disease. 42% of the respondents reported having used cannabis within the past 2 years, and 31% reported having used it within the past month. Most respondents said they did so for therapeutic purposes. Common symptoms of sickle cell disease include pain, fatigue, and swelling of the hands and feet. Many respondents acknowledged that the use of cannabis allowed for less use of pain medications, finding this consistent with reports from other cohorts of chronic pain patients. To date, the use of medicinal cannabis has not been evaluated in controlled settings for patients with sickle cell disease. The authors concluded, quote, "From our study, as well as other reports, it appears that many adults with sickle cell disease believe that it has medicinal benefits. Thus, there is a strong rationale for the study of the medicinal properties of marijuana and its constituents in sickle cell disease," end quote. The full text of this study, marijuana use in adults living with sickle cell disease, appears in Cannabis and Cannabinoid Research. And that is the end of our rather long hemp news segment tonight. We're back. Unfortunately, our musical guest is out, so John Cornett couldn't make it. But you're back. Welcome back, Clay. Let's see if we can get the cameras in place. Normally we have a moment to roll them around, but let's see. Huh? Video. Do we have a video? Let's go on this video. I think this is Vivian McPeak. You know, next weekend is the Seattle Hemp Fest. That's the largest marijuana festival in the United States. And here's Vivian McPeak talking about it. We'll be right back.
When it comes to prohibition, you have the right not to remain silent, and that's why we do Seattle Hemp Fest. No amount of guns or tanks or jails or prisons ever going to stop the March of Freedom and the Song of Justice. Because with all the warts and all the problems that we have here, United States of America, us Americans, we love our freedom. We love our liberty. And by golly, we haven't got enough of it yet. About 10 years ago, we used to hear this thing, the terrorists hate us for our freedom. I'm not necessarily sure that's true. But our answer was, well, if they hate us for our freedom, then let's really piss them off and give us some more. Let's legalize cannabis for real. And that means repeal prohibition on the federal level. That doesn't mean highly tax it, restrict patients, close down dispensaries. That doesn't mean piss tests, be discriminated at your job. That's not our version of legalization. Last year we had 2 adult lounges here, out of public view, where children couldn't see people, fenced off, where people 21 and over could go behind the fence and smoke their pot, out of the view of kids, totally legal in the state. But our state legislature passed 2136, Senate Bill 2136, making it a Class C felony to have any place for the purpose of using marijuana, which means no marijuana clubs, no private clubs, no pot parties, nothing like that. That's not legalization, folks. That's a state legislature that treats cannabis like it's OxyContin. Every day I walk down the street, the sidewalk, people smoking cigarettes like nothing with impunity everywhere. Even though 400,000 people die directly from using cigarettes this year in America, 400,000 people directly from their use, even more from secondhand smoke. Drive down the street, you see people in front of bars on the patios drinking alcohol. Even though over 40,000 people died from alcohol-related illness, who knows how many people died from alcohol-related violence, car accidents, suicides, accidents. But you can't smoke a joint. Does that sound like legalization to you? No! Sure don't to me. That's why we're going to keep doing this. And then, I've asked probably 10 times from the media this week, well, why have a hemp fest? Isn't pot legal? I mean, is hemp fest really a need for it anymore? Is it really relevant? Well, let me tell you something. First of all, it ain't legal. The federal government could shut this all down at any time. But over in Germany last year in October, they had Oktoberfest where 2 million people celebrated the culture of beer. And beer's always been legal in Germany. So when pot's completely legal, we're going to keep doing hemp fest. Because this is a big cultural celebration. This is our community and our family. We deserve to have our own festival. This is Bud of Seattle. This is Toke Life. This is Bomber Shoot. This is THC Fair. This is our party and we deserve it. We are the most peaceful, non-violent, non-threatening culture on earth. We are artistic. We make awesome music. We make beautiful art. We make wonderful movies. We have beautiful families. We raise wonderful children. We are one of the most beautiful cultures on the earth. And we've been pissed on. We've been shit on. We've had our doors knocked down. We had people pull us from our naked feet on the ground, stick their foot on us, jackbooted people wearing riot gear, put a laser bead on our chest, put a laser on our children's chest, shoot our dog in our house, kill our pets in our front yard, then take us and throw us in jails and prisons and cages. Like common thieves and criminals and murderers and rapists and pedophiles. It's still going on. Today we have 50 Americans serving life in prison for marijuana. Life in prison for a herb that's never killed anyone. So it can rain on us. We can come up hundreds of thousands of dollars short in our donation bins. We can make 18, 20 cents per person for the whole weekend in our donation bins. For 140 bands, 120 speakers, 400 vendors, all for free. Sure, we can have all kinds of pot organizations and magazines. Don't help us. No, they throw an after party. Or they do something to try to profit off of Hemp Fest the weekend. Or, how about a convention in Tacoma on the same weekend as us, busing people to and from our event. That's the kind of support we get. Well, it doesn't matter. Because this isn't freedom. This is not legalization. Doesn't matter what we have to do. If we have to sell our kidneys, we're going to have Hemp Fest year after year after year. It can rain on us. Our cars can break down on the way here. Our staff can kill themselves 16, 18 hours a day in the drenching hot sun and then in the rain. Can be here all night long freezing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not as bad as being on chemotherapy and not having pot. It's not as bad as being in a prison cell and losing your freedom. It's not as bad as seeing the old growth forest destroyed needlessly. We're going to keep going.
That is Mr. Vivian McPeak, the MC at the Seattle Hemp Fest, and he they'll be throwing the Seattle Hemp Fest starting next Friday. It'll be going on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I think it's the 17th, 18th, and 19th. Now, I am going to, on Saturday, be at the Oregon State Capitol at the Oregon Cannabis Convention. And so if you don't want to go to a crowd of 120,000 in Seattle on Saturday, come down to the Oregon State Capitol, and we'll see you there for the Oregon Cannabis Convention. How you doing, Clay? Welcome back.
Doing good.
So you're in town just for like another 3 or 4 days?
Couple days, yep.
And then you're back to Colombia.
Back to Bogota, try to file my papers to see if I can get a visa to live there. Yeah.
So our long-term viewers know that you got trapped in El Salvador in an unexpected nightmare.
That's exactly the word I'd use, nightmare.
Yeah. And we were locked in a horrific El Salvador prison for almost 3 months.
Yeah, it wasn't pleasant. I have never been to prison or really to jail for that matter before.
And you don't speak Spanish that well.
And didn't speak Spanish, and there wasn't anybody that spoke Spanish there except for a couple inmates that had a little bit of Spanish to speak.
Right, a little bit of
Just
English.
a little bit, English, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to learn my Spanish.
Well, good luck with that. It's not easy to learn a language, especially when you're an old dog. Got to learn a new trick.
It's slow for me, yeah.
Hey, if you have a question out there tonight, we've got about another 25 minutes or so, and we'd be happy to take your call. Give us a call at that number there on your screen. It's 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. If you want to talk about ending marijuana prohibition in Oregon or elsewhere, how legalization is working out here in Oregon or Washington or elsewhere, or about industrial hemp, or about Clay's trip to El Salvador, any of the news, you can call us at this number, 503-288-4442. We have our little hemp freedom display. This is the hemp flame of freedom. It's hemp seed oil with a hemp wick. This will be next week's hemp wick. Little bit of hemp oil here. Hemp was prohibited to protect the petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate, elite, fascist sons of a bitches who brought us marijuana prohibition. Right over here next to it is our hempcrete. This is marijuana stems chopped up, mixed with powdered limestone, and makes a material that's stronger than concrete. So we are taking phone calls tonight, and I'm told we have a caller. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hi, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, I am wondering what other stations you're on besides Xfinity. Are you on,
I'll tell you.
let's see.
We're on CenturyLink, and so we're on cable throughout the Portland area, in Portland and Salem and points in between. And so we're live on cable channel 11 most Friday nights. Last week we had a pre-tape show. I believe this is show 950. We've been doing this show. I've been doing this show since 1996. And so about 22 years now. We also stream on Facebook, so people anywhere in the country can watch it. They can watch it streaming at facebook.com/restorehemp. That's facebook.com/restorehemp. We've been getting 2,000 to 5,000 viewers a week that way. We stream the next day on YouTube. We don't get that many views on YouTube anymore, you know, 100, a couple hundred a week. And that's just look up Cannabis Common Sense on YouTube. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Hey, you're welcome. And if you go to YouTube, if you've got a few weeks, you can watch about 750 of our old shows going back to 2008, I think. But I started.
I think I've seen about all of them.
All right. Well, thank you. Hopefully, we're still passing down knowledge. So you're in the Portland area.
Gresham.
Gresham. Okay. Yeah, we're on.
But a friend of mine is out in Sandy.
We should be if they have either Xfinity or CenturyLink. We're on cable channel 11 at 8 o'clock almost every Friday night. But you can watch it on the internet too.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. If you're out there and you have a question or comment for us tonight, you can call us at 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. You might notice that we have this banner turned around here. This is our logo, but quite bizarrely, a Israeli-Canadian energy company has come in to steal our name. They claim they own my personal name, Paul Stanford. They claim they own everything I've done in my life, including the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation. And they got a preliminary injunction from the Multnomah County Court here in Oregon that says I cannot represent that I Okay. I hate that.
They're not being censored. Maybe are.
Okay, we had an audio issue in the technical thing. You know, we're all volunteers here, myself included. So anyway, I was just saying that the Multnomah County courts have granted a preliminary injunction to an Israeli-Canadian oil company that was called Adira, A-D-I-R-A, Energy. And they have taken over my business. They even claim they own my name. And we, after 26 months, just last week, we finally got a trial scheduled. And I'm trying to get a jury trial because the judges haven't been very trustworthy, to say the least. And so we're going for a jury trial, and they just scheduled it for March 11th, 2019. So I'm hoping that we will win, and an Oregon jury will find in our favor and make this Israeli-Canadian oil company, Adira Energy, give us back our company and pay us tens of millions of dollars and punish these dirty, dastardly dogs. You know, this Adira Energy is actually owned by George Soros, and it's no coincidence that George Soros' initiative pushed us aside in 2014. We had put Measure 80 on the ballot in 2012, and in 2014, Soros' group played a lot of dirty, underhanded pool, to be quite honest, and sent fake protesters and fake union infiltrators to come in and disrupt our campaign, and this fake investment company to come and take us down. So we hope we can get a jury of Oregon residents to rule against George Soros' energy company. So you can find out more about that by giving us a call. Or if you are looking for a doctor, I urge you, do not go to our old medical marijuana clinic. Even though we have friends in there that I hired and were my employees for many years, right now it's being run by these dirty, dastardly dogs. In fact, they even took my company public in April. I've wanted all my life to take my company public, which is why I worked with these people. But they took my company public, and in exchange for my $5 million a year business, they gave me $12,000 worth of stock. That doesn't seem right, does it? Well, that's what's happened. So if you have any of these conditions, do not go to my old business, Empower Healthcare, until we take control of it back. Give us a call, and we'll be happy to give you a referral to doctors who can help you, who aren't being controlled by George Soros's Israeli-Canadian oil company. Don't go to Empower Healthcare. Give us a call at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. Okay, we're going to run another video, and we'll be back in just a second. I think this is a music video of a very disturbing nature from back in 2011. No-knock raid. We'll be right back.
This administration, we have increased the amount of money for handling the problem of dangerous drugs sevenfold. It will be $600 million this year. More money will be needed in the future. I want to say, however, that despite our budget problems, to the extent money can help in meeting the problem of dangerous drugs, it will be available. This is one area where we cannot have budget cuts, because we must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one in the United States, the problem of dangerous drugs.
It's a no-knock raid. Don't be afraid. We'll shoot your dogs in front of your kids, 'cause we are the SWAT. We're here for your pot and all the cash that you've got. We are adrenaline junkies taking orders from the top. KGB and the DEA, they'll make you disappear like in Guantanamo Bay. in the middle of the night, you'll have nothing to say. If we get the wrong address, it doesn't matter anyway. We'll still get our kicks, we'll still have our fun. Yeah, we are the SWAT, we are adrenaline junkies till the drugs are all gone. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. Paramilitary police state on parade. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. You do the time for your victimless crime. And it's a no-knock raid. It's a no-knock raid. Don't be afraid.
You shoot my dog! You shoot the fucking dog! Oh my God!
This is a war, and this is your fate. We are the face of your new police state. We are the law, and we've got the guns. Statutory power, mandatory minimums. We are the SWAT, we're here for your part and all the cash that you got. We are adrenaline junkies taking orders from the czar. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. Paramilitary police state on parade. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. You do the time for your victimless crime. And it's a no-knock raid. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. Paramilitary police state on parade. Flash bang on the ground, don't hear a sound. Could be you, could be the mayor of your town. And it's a no-knock raid. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid.
So those are real videos, and that last one, a man who just gotten off a 12-hour factory shift was woken up on his couch. He was unarmed and shot 25 times. You talked about a mayor of a town in Illinois they raided the wrong house and shot and killed the mayor. You saw a man who opened his door and was shot by the police there, and that's what happens with the drug war, unfortunately. It's a very disturbing but very provocative video from Lindy, a Canadian artist, and recorded by the libertarian publication Reason magazine. We want to thank them for the use of that video. It's kind of depressing, but we need to see those things and think about them. So what do you think of that? I know you've seen it before.
Yeah, it's scary.
It's very frightening,
yeah.
But it could happen to any of us at any time, especially with the increasing power of the corporate police state. You're much more likely to be shot and killed if you're a black man, obviously. We hear about that happening every day. But hey, they can shoot and kill any of us. So we're here to try to stop those sorts of things and inspire hope. And we are taking your phone calls tonight. We've got about 13 minutes left here, so you can call us at 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. And we're happy to take your call. So tell us about El Salvador, Clay. I mean, you know, those kinds of shootings are even more common there, aren't they?
Yeah, there's been a few times that I was there in the hospital. I was reading the paper. There were like 28 people shot in a single day.
By one
guy with a gun and being driven by a guy on a motorcycle. So two guys on a motorcycle. They shot 28 people. Guns are illegal in El Salvador, and they have guards at most every fancy place, including the banks and stuff. And tons of police everywhere on trucks loaded down with Uzis, and they didn't respond.
So I know people can find out more about your case at freeclay.org, a site that we set up while you were locked up there. I know you're still trying to raise money for the legal fight. You have a GoFundMe website set up.
It's an enormous amount of money that's costing me.
Good. Hey, we have another phone caller. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hi there.
Hey. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great.
Good.
So my question is, my sister has neurological disease.
Yes.
And we want to know if it's THC or if it's CBD that helps with severe pain.
THC primarily. Probably you're going to look for something that's a 9-to-1 or more ratio, more THC than CBD, and that generally will help. But if that doesn't give relief, then try other combinations. I know there's a 6-second delay on the television thing, so if you can hear me through the phone, that's a better way to communicate.
I heard you. Thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome. We are down to just about 10 minutes left. Anything you want to say quick?
Just if you've got extra money, send it to freeclay.org.
Freeclay.org. That'll help you with your El Salvador lawyers and stuff. I know they took everything you owned in your life, which wasn't much.
Well,
I mean, it was about $9,000 and a few possessions.
Right.
You're still fighting to get those back.
Yeah, they have everything still to this day. My lawyer, I just talked to my lawyer.
You're on disability,
right.
So you don't have much of an income outside of what Social Security gives you.
Right.
I know you got all kinds of scars and things on your legs,
right.
And now you've been through that horrible, you had a lot of dead tissue they had to remove, and you were in the hospital. After you were in this horrible El Salvador prison for 3 months, then you were in a hospital for 45 days.
And 2 more operations, yeah. It was horrible. Yeah.
Well, we have a video about our old clinic that's currently being run by this Israeli-Canadian energy company, Adira Energy. This is from 2009 from a local television station. Again, don't go to Empower Healthcare. If you want to find out more, you need a doctor referral, you can call us at 503-235-4606. Here's the video. We'll be right back.
The mayor of Eugene recently declared Medical Marijuana Week. The mayor of Portland declared the entire month of May Medical Marijuana Month. So for our cover story today, we talk with the Portland man who has probably done more than anyone to get medical marijuana into the hands of Oregonians and tens of thousands of people across the country. Paul Stanford. I started by asking him about the issues past, present, and the future.
Well, it's moved forward an enormous amount over the past couple of years. Just a couple of years ago, the politicians would not say anything about marijuana, and now you're hearing increasing calls for the taxation and regulation of the adult marijuana market, and that medical marijuana is accepted by such a wide variety of people, over 70% support. We're just moving into a new era, I believe.
The winds of politics certainly changed in Washington, D.C. We have a new president. Where do you think we are based on where we've been when it comes to medical marijuana?
Well, we've gone through a long winter of discontent, in my opinion, in terms of the whole Reagan, Bush, reactionary backlash to the progressive movements of the 60s. And I think that hopefully we're moving into a new progressive era like we saw with the New Deal in the 30s and 40s, where new programs will be instituted. I want to see the taxation and regulation of the adult marijuana market. I think that'll generate an enormous amount of revenue and shrink the costs for law enforcement significantly. Recently, studies have shown that 47% of arrests across the United States are for simple marijuana crimes, and the majority of those are just possession. And in a lot of states, that is a misdemeanor instead of, like here in Oregon, just an infraction.
This is Medical Marijuana Month, but I hear you talking about the expansion of the use of marijuana for adults. Isn't that what the critics feared all along, that medical marijuana was just a stepping stone for legalization?
It has been a concern that's been voiced by the opponents to medical marijuana. At first, I wasn't really at the forefront of the medical marijuana movement. I was working for taxation and regulation and kind of fell into the clinic business and helping, because I had doctor friends who wanted to help patients, and they asked me to help facilitate that, and that's led to, now we have, based here in Portland, we are have clinics in 8 states, soon to be 9 states, and just our personnel have grown from 50 employees by over 20% since the first of the year. And so while all these other industries are laying people off, we're hiring people and growing pretty rapidly at about 50% a year. And we've seen over 60,000 patients right now. By the end of the year, that could top 100,000.
You know, earlier this month, California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger said it was time to debate the legalization of marijuana, even though he says he doesn't support the idea. Nor does President Barack Obama, who said in March he doesn't think legalization and taxation of pot is a good strategy to grow the economy.
Okay, well, that was from back in 2009. Obviously, some of those things have happened now. Here it is 9 years later, a little bit more than 9 years since that story appeared. We've seen legalization and some of the good things have happened, and I haven't seen any of the bad things, really.
There is nothing bad about cannabis, marijuana, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I mean, you listen to the law enforcement people and they talk about illegal diversion, and obviously that's against the law, but the laws are wrong.
Right.
You know, marijuana should be freely available to anyone over the age of 18, if you ask me. It's definitely less harmful than alcohol, and we should be able to export that to other states, and maybe this fall, with the change in the composition of the federal legislature after the November election, we'll see new leaders in charge of the United States House of Representatives and Senate that will pass a full federal marijuana legalization bill. You know, when they ended alcohol prohibition in 1933, it was the state of New York that first ended it in its borders in 1927. So 6 years later, we saw it become legal at the federal level again. Well, 2012 was when marijuana was first decriminalized. It became legal in 2013. 6 years later would be 2019. So maybe we'll see that happen. We can hope. Anything else you want to say in closing here? I think we still have about 5 minutes left.
If you have any questions at all, call me. Look at me on Facebook, friend me. I'm happy to tell the story. I am looking for a ghostwriter to help me with my story.
Ghostwriters are pretty cheap, actually. You know, I've seen them out there that they charge like 6 cents a word.
Right on.
Yeah.
That was a lot of words.
Yeah, it depends on how many words you want to write.
I've got a lot of words.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do need help with my bills because somebody very, very helpful helped me out with getting out of El Salvador. I owe a great deal of money to different companies and authorities. And it's an ongoing process. It's going to be a while before I get my money back, if I ever get my money back, or any of my belongings back. So help if you can, please. freeclay.org.
freeclay.org. You can find out more about our organization by going to crrh.org. We have a video featuring my old friend John Trudell, who passed away a little bit over 2 years ago. This is from 2010. Just before our Hempstock Festival. So here's John Trudell in a flashback, 8 years. We'll be right back. Well, John, you just recently started a new effort regarding hemp, and hemp is an energy alternative. You want to talk about that?
I did.
Well, you know. So, yeah.
Oh, wow.
We were talking about Project Heart, which is
come on,
Heart's an acronym, right?
Yeah. Hempstead Project Heart.
Right.
And HEART stands for Hemp Energy Alternative Resource Technologies.
Good.
And we put up a website, hempsteadprojectheart.com. And it's in its first form, but the shape will probably change as time passes.
Sure.
But really and it's not so much an organization, but Hempstead Project Heart, it's really just about, we want to see how far we can get between now and 2 years from now in raising the reality and idea of hemp as an alternative resource energy, all right, in the next 2 years. We would like to see it become a part of the public dialogue where it's being serious, hemp with its own identity. And, you know, So our focus with Project Heart is about focusing on hemp as an alternative energy resource and all the benefits that it has. And it isn't so much that it's an organization where we're trying to recruit members or people can join. It's really about trying to just encourage people, all of the people that are interested and understand hemp now. It's about encouraging them to spread that interest. You know, so what we did so anyway, we created hempsteadprojectheart.com, and what we have on there, so we have some attitudes, some written stuff that we put up there, and then links to hemp sites, websites, different websites and things like that. And that's how we're starting. But our idea is to see how far can we take this in the next 2 years, right?
To get it into the mainstream consciousness.
Getting into the mainstream consciousness, and with the focus being on hemp.
Yeah, and energy.
As an energy resource, yes, the focus being on hemp itself, because, you know, well, I mean, you can make oil out of it, food out of it. I'm not going to go into the litany because I'm sure everyone...
Our viewers are probably a little more aware than most.
Yeah, well, they know more about it than I do, than practical realities. But I do know that when you look at, on the global perspective, look at the U.S., but when you look on that, you know, I think in terms, well, of hemp, here's a renewable resource that can make oxygen for the sky on a regular basis and make fuel to run, you know, that's clean.
Yeah,
cleaner,
it doesn't add to
as
the
well as the
carbon
food, and so all of the things that could be done. And when people think in terms of global warming and all the things going on, well, hemp is very just practical towards all of that. And what we would like to see is the other environment, whether it's wind, solar, but all the other environmentally concerned people, we would like to see them not put down what they're doing, but to consider about adding hemp because hemp is something that can be.
Here's our hemp flame of freedom. That's the late, great John Trudell, a Native American poet. Here we are promoting hemp energy. This is hemp oil. We're down to about 20 seconds left. Thanks for coming on again, Clay, and you travel safe down in Colombia. Good luck getting your residency visa down there. We'll see you back here sometime soon. Thank you, viewers. Again, if you want help finding a medical marijuana doctor, call us at 503-235-4606 and help us restore hemp. Good night.